"These luxury pieces aren't meant for people like you," Catherine Blackwood said icily, her voice slicing through the crisp, polished air of Meridian's elite Fifth Avenue boutique. Her words lingered like venom, just as the security guard began moving toward the young black woman who had simply inquired about the evening gown collection. Silence swept across the boutique. Eyes followed the looming figure of the guard, whose hand hovered ominously near his radio, prepared for escalation. But despite the flush of humiliation surging through her body, Amara Sterling's face remained composed, an image of unwavering dignity. Her gaze stayed steady, jaw tight, but calm. She didn't protest. She didn't raise her voice. That simply wasn't who Amara Sterling was. "Girls like you come here pretending to be something you're not," Catherine sneered, her voice intentionally loud enough for every shopper to hear. Still, without looking back, without allowing them the satisfaction of a single tear, Amara calmly reached into her modest leather purse, took out her phone, and dialed a number etched into her memory. "Dad," she said, voice even but clipped, "you're not going to believe what just happened." What the Meridian staff didn't realize, what Catherine Blackwood could never have anticipated as she stared at Amara with thinly veiled contempt, was who Amara truly was, and how her billionaire father was about to become their greatest reckoning. Have you ever experienced discrimination like this? Share your story and let us know where you're watching from, because what happens next is pure poetic justice. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of a luxurious Manhattan penthouse, casting warm gold across its modern interior. Amara Sterling, 22, stood in her expansive walk-in closet, thoughtfully picking an outfit for her college graduation dinner. Her father, tech tycoon Victor Sterling, had arranged a private celebration at Le Bernardin, but before that, she wanted to find the perfect dress. A Harvard graduate in international business, Amara embodied both her mother's elegance and her father's quiet strength. Though raised in immense privilege, she remained grounded. Her natural hair, styled in refined box braids, framed her face softly. Her minimalist makeup was effortless and refined. She settled on gray sweatpants and a white tee, casual yet classy, like her. "I'm heading to Meridian on Fifth Avenue," she called out. Victor, still reviewing reports in his study, glanced up. At 55, tall and commanding with salt and pepper hair, he said, "Take Marcus." "I'm just buying a dress, Dad." "I'll be fine," she smiled, kissing his cheek. "Plus, it's a perfect day to walk through Central Park." "Call me when you're done," he replied, watching her leave, just his daughter, grounded and radiant, stepping into her next chapter. Amara strolled through Central Park, inhaling the fresh spring air and savoring the quiet joy of blending into the city's rhythm, just another young woman enjoying a Saturday afternoon. She had no way of knowing that this seemingly ordinary day would not only alter the course of her own life but send ripples through an entire industry. Meridian Fifth Avenue towered like a gleaming fortress of glass among Manhattan's most prestigious fashion houses. The boutique was a sanctuary of haute couture, showcasing elite designs from the most revered European labels. Its clientele? A-list celebrities, socialites, and the crème de la crème of New York society. For Amara, it seemed like the perfect destination to find something meaningful, something unforgettable, for her graduation celebration that evening. As she neared the shimmering storefront, a thrill of anticipation sparked within her. Graduation was a once-in-a-lifetime moment, and she wanted everything about it to feel magical. What she didn't realize was that behind the boutique's pristine reception desk stood Catherine Blackwood, a gatekeeper of fashion who was about to deliver a lesson in prejudice with consequences far beyond her imagination. Crystal chandeliers bathed the marble floors in prismatic light as Amara stepped inside. The boutique was nothing short of a fashion cathedral. Silken gowns hung like masterpieces, designer shoes posed like precious relics. The air itself felt rarefied, reverent. From her perch behind the counter, Catherine glanced up. Her platinum hair was pulled tightly into a polished chignon, her tailored navy suit hugged her frame flawlessly, her face perfectly contoured. At 42, she had built her reputation on the illusion of exclusivity, and she guarded it fiercely. Her eyes swept over Amara in one swift, silent verdict. White cotton dress, cheap. Plain flats, definitely not high-end. No designer bag, no flashy jewelry, no signs of wealth. Without rising or welcoming her, Catherine's smile tightened, cool and appraising. Still glowing with hope, Amara stepped up to the counter. "Good morning," she said warmly. "I'm looking for a dress for a special dinner tonight. Something elegant but not overly formal." Catherine responded with a clipped tone, her professionalism mechanical. "What's your budget range?" Amara blinked, caught off guard. In all her years of shopping, she had never been asked that before seeing a single item. "I'm not sure yet, I'd like to browse first." Catherine's smile turned brittle. She gestured toward a far corner. "You might find something over there. Those are more accessible." Amara followed the cue to a sale rack filled with last season's leftovers. The message was unmistakable. She wasn't seen as worthy. Composed, Amara countered, "Actually, I was hoping to see your evening wear, your current season." Catherine's brows arched, her voice rich with condescension. "Our evening collection starts at $8,000. These are investment pieces, not for casual shoppers." The contempt in Catherine's voice was unmistakable. Amara felt her face flush with heat, but she kept her tone calm and composed. "I understand," she said evenly. "May I still take a look?" Catherine sighed, a long, theatrical breath, as though fulfilling a basic request was somehow beneath her. "I suppose," she replied curtly, "but I'll need to see proof of your ability to purchase before we allow any handling of the garments." Store policy. It was a lie. Meridian had no such policy. But Catherine had long mastered the art of exclusion, wielding made-up rules like weapons to keep out anyone who didn't meet her silent standards. Amara's sense of celebration was rapidly souring into something harsher, an unsettling awareness that she wasn't being evaluated on who she was or how she carried herself, but rather on shallow assumptions tied to her appearance. "Proof of ability to purchase?" Amara repeated, her voice tight with restraint. "And what exactly would that include?" Catherine's smile turned razor-sharp. "Bank statements, credit card pre-authorization, or a letter of credit from your financial institution," she replied, her tone casual but calculated. "We've had incidents with certain customers handling items they weren't serious about buying." Certain customers. The phrase lingered in the air like a toxin. There was no mistaking the implication. All around them, white, obviously wealthy shoppers browsed the store freely, untouched by scrutiny. No one asked them for credentials. No barriers were placed between them and the luxury draped before them. Amara's eyes tracked a middle-aged woman in jeans and a casual blazer being warmly greeted by a sales associate who eagerly presented her with gowns worth tens of thousands of dollars. No mention of money. No judgment. Just the kind of service anyone would expect. "I don't carry financial documents while shopping," Amara said, maintaining her calm. "I'm simply here to browse. Surely I'm allowed to view the collection." Catherine's expression cooled further. She had spent years constructing Meridian's aura of exclusivity, and she wouldn't allow this young woman, who clearly didn't grasp the rules, to disrupt the status quo. "Miss," she said, her voice now syrupy with condescension, "I think you may have misunderstood the kind of establishment this is. Meridian caters to a very particular clientele. You might be more at ease at Nordstrom or Macy's." The insult struck like a slap. Catherine had essentially told her to shop elsewhere, at stores that, while reputable, clearly didn't fit the image she believed Amara represented. Other shoppers were beginning to notice. Some averted their gaze, uncomfortable with the unfolding prejudice. Others watched with the detached interest of spectators at a public spectacle. "I'd like to speak to your manager," Amara said, voice steady despite the humiliation rising inside her. Catherine gave a cold, humorless laugh. "I am the manager. And I'm telling you, this collection isn't suited for someone in your situation. I'm saving you from embarrassment." The cruelty in her words was staggering. She claimed to shield Amara from humiliation, while actively orchestrating it. A security guard emerged as if summoned by an invisible cue. He was a towering man in his 40s, and it was immediately clear that his presence was meant to intimidate, not protect. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his eyes locked onto Amara, not Catherine. "This young lady seems to be confused about our store's policies," Catherine said smoothly, her voice oozing false professionalism. Perhaps you can assist her in finding the exit. Amara felt the space around her tighten, as though the walls were shrinking inward. What had begun as a simple outing for a graduation dress had twisted into a staged humiliation, a sharp reminder that no matter her degree, her achievements, or her family status, there were still places where her skin color would be seen before her character ever could. The guard's bulky frame cast a heavy shadow over her as other customers began pulling out their phones. The boutique's air of luxury had shifted. Now it felt tense, thick with judgment. And Amara stood in the eye of the storm. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," the guard said, his tone laced with authority, like someone trained to remove the unwanted. His hand hovered near the radio strapped to his belt, prepared to escalate if necessary. Amara's heart thudded in her chest, but her voice held firm. "I haven't done anything wrong. I'm a customer trying to shop." Catherine moved in closer, her voice lifted so the entire store could hear. "You're disturbing our clientele," she declared. "This is a private business, and we reserve the right to deny service to anyone who doesn't meet our standards." That last phrase, "our standards," dripped with meaning everyone in the boutique could interpret. Customers whispered behind raised phones. Associates stood frozen, their expressions a mix of unease and subtle agreement. "What standards am I not meeting?" Amara asked, her words slicing through the hushed tension like glass. "I'm dressed appropriately. I've been polite. I haven't touched a thing. So what's the issue?" Catherine's professional veneer cracked completely. Her voice dropped to a hiss. "The problem," she said, stepping so close Amara could smell her designer perfume, "is girls like you walk in here all the time, handling items you can't afford, snapping photos for Instagram, pretending you belong. This is Meridian, not a budget outlet where you get to waste our time." The racism was no longer subtle. It was blatant, raw, and being filmed from multiple angles. Catherine had moved from veiled bias to outright discrimination, and she seemed to savor the authority it gave her. "Girls like me," Amara echoed, her voice loud and measured. "Could you explain what that means, Miss Blackwood?" Catherine flinched. She hadn't introduced herself. Amara had read the name from her badge. A small detail, but one that hinted at an intellect and presence Catherine hadn't anticipated. "Don't try to be clever," Catherine barked. "Security, get her out. Now." The guard advanced, but Amara raised her hand calmly. "I'll go," she said, voice quiet but resolute. "But I want everyone in this store to understand what just happened. I came to buy a dress for my college graduation. Instead, I was profiled, belittled, and pushed out, based solely on your assumptions of who I must be." She turned toward the stunned shoppers, letting her voice reach every corner of the store. The confidence Amara carried had been forged through years of top-tier education and the unwavering love of her parents. She paused at the door and said clearly, "I hope every one of you remembers this moment the next time someone claims discrimination is a thing of the past." With her chin lifted high, she stepped onto Fifth Avenue, the boutique's glass doors closing behind her like the final act of a cruel play. The sunlight outside felt harsh, unforgiving. Amara's hands trembled as she reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. The adrenaline from the confrontation was fading fast, leaving behind a hollow ache that cut straight through her. She had faced microaggressions before, those quiet, coded reminders of the world's judgment. But this had been loud, public, and undeniable. She needed space. Crossing the street, she made her way into Central Park, where the noise of traffic softened and the ache in her chest could finally rise to the surface. She sat on a bench, took a breath, and called the one person who could steady her world. "Princess," answered the warm, familiar voice of Victor Sterling. "How's the dress shopping going?" Amara couldn't hold it together any longer. Her voice cracked. "Dad?" she whispered, her throat thick with the tears she'd fought to hide. Something happened. Victor's demeanor shifted instantly. After 25 years of leading one of the most powerful tech companies in the world, he could read danger in silence. But pain in his daughter's voice cut far deeper than any business threat. "Where are you?" he asked sharply. "Tell me everything." Amara recounted it all. The suspicious questions, the invented store policy, the humiliation, the guard's looming presence. Every word tightened the line of Victor's jaw. Her name was Catherine Blackwood, she concluded, her voice tired. She said she was the manager. Amara paused. I just wanted a dress for graduation, Dad. I didn't go there to make trouble. Victor's voice was a low, calm thunder. You didn't make trouble, sweetheart. You met it. And now, that trouble's about to find out what happens when it messes with a Sterling. Amara could already hear him typing, furious, purposeful keystrokes. She recognized the rhythm. Victor wasn't just angry. He was mobilizing. Dad, she said, hesitant, please don't go overboard. I just want to forget this. But Victor's rage wasn't impulsive. It had been simmering for decades, for every assumption, every dismissal, every door quietly closed in his face. No, Amara, he said coldly. That woman didn't just insult you. She insulted everything we built. Everything we are. And that has a price. In the background, she heard his assistant pick up. Phone lines lit up. Orders flew. I'm sending a car for you, he said with surgical calm. And I'm calling an emergency board meeting. Catherine Blackwood is about to learn what it costs to judge the wrong person. Dad, what are you going to do? Victor's voice was steel. Tomorrow, Meridian will learn that Sterling Dynamics doesn't just innovate, we enforce. And justice? We can afford that. As Amara hung up, she felt it, a slow shift from shame to power. Catherine Blackwood hadn't just insulted a shopper. She had provoked a storm. And the winds were already turning. The suit Victor Sterling wore likely cost more than the average person's car, and his mere presence turned heads across the sidewalk. Behind him followed a procession of professionals, stern-faced lawyers, high-powered accountants, and corporate strategists, each carrying sleek briefcases and tablets packed with digital firepower that could dismantle empires or acquire them in a heartbeat. Inside the boutique, Catherine Blackwood looked up from her inventory report just in time to see the procession approaching. Her heart skipped. Her first instinct was excitement. High-net-worth clients often traveled with entourages, and this one screamed, serious money. She quickly glanced at her reflection in the polished mirror behind the reception desk, smoothed her jacket, and flashed the smile she reserved for elite clientele. This could be it, the kind of purchase that secured not just her commission, but possibly a feature in the corporate newsletter. A few gowns, a well-timed upsell, and she'd hit her bonus for the quarter. The boutique's doors opened with a quiet chime. Victor Sterling stepped in first. Catherine's smile brightened. She approached confidently, hand extended with polished grace. Good morning. Welcome to Meridian. I'm Catherine Blackwood, store manager. How may I assist you today? Victor's eyes drifted to her hand, but he didn't take it. Instead, he studied her with the cold precision of a man who'd negotiated global deals and dismantled hostile competitors. Miss Blackwood, he said calmly, I believe you met my daughter yesterday. Catherine's smile faltered. The blood drained from her face. Her outstretched hand quivered slightly, still hanging in the air as her brain scrambled to assemble the pieces. The girl I threw out, his daughter? Her lips moved before her mind caught up. Your daughter? Amara Sterling, Victor said, his voice now commanding the attention of the entire boutique. Harvard Business School graduate. Future CEO of Sterling Dynamics. 22. And, according to you, apparently unworthy of dignity in your establishment. The words hit like a hammer. Catherine's knees weakened. Sterling Dynamics. Of course. The name echoed in every boardroom. A global tech giant with a valuation in the stratosphere, and Victor Sterling, its legendary founder, a billionaire many times over. Mr. Sterling, she stammered. There must be some misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding, Victor interrupted, voice cool but thunderous in impact, was yours. You misunderstood who you were speaking to, what era we're living in, and just how expensive your ignorance was about to become. He turned to his entourage. Begin documentation. Every receipt, every staff record, every customer interaction over the last 5 years. Full audit. No exceptions. The professionals fanned out with military efficiency. Tablets activated. Notes taken. The boutique's exclusive serenity was now a war zone of corporate reckoning. Acquisition? Catherine croaked, barely able to stand. Victor gave her a smile, sharp and utterly devoid of kindness. Congratulations, Miss Blackwood. You're about to be unemployed by your new employer. 6 months later, the boutique's polished facade bore a different name, Amara, in shimmering gold lettering. A brand reborn, honoring the daughter once shunned. Now, Amara Sterling stood as creative director and chief diversity officer, the boutique's grand reopening drawing a crowd that wrapped around the block. Crowds stretched around the block. Fashion editors, business analysts, and major media outlets covered the incredible transformation of an entire luxury brand, sparked by a single moment of prejudice. At the heart of it all stood Amara Sterling, no longer the woman unjustly humiliated, but the driving force behind a groundbreaking vision for inclusive luxury. Her speech, broadcast live by national and global news networks, resonated far beyond Fifth Avenue. 6 months ago, she began, her voice clear and assured, I was not evaluated by my education, my integrity, or my purpose, but by someone else's assumptions. Today, we prove that luxury and inclusivity aren't opposites, they are inseparable. Behind her stood the redesigned boutique, a space that retained the elegance of elite fashion but shed the arrogance. The once elitist barriers had been replaced with transparent pricing, a diverse and empathetic staff, and a culture where every customer, regardless of background or attire, received world-class service. The employee training program Amara created became a national case study in retail management courses. From sales associates to senior executives, every team member underwent training in unconscious bias, cultural sensitivity, and luxury-level hospitality. Meanwhile, across the city, Catherine Blackwood was facing a different kind of rebranding. Blacklisted from the world of high fashion following the viral footage of her discriminatory behavior, she now worked behind a register in a discount retail chain. She was tasked with delivering the same courteous service she once withheld, and the irony struck hard when a young black customer entered her store one afternoon, receiving the kind of service Catherine had failed to offer Amara. Victor Sterling watched his daughter cut the ceremonial ribbon at the reopening. His eyes, usually unreadable in boardrooms, now glistened with unspoken pride. The acquisition and complete overhaul of the Meridian brand had cost over $200 million, a staggering sum. But as he later reflected during their family celebration that evening, some investments carry value far beyond financials. You didn't just purchase a company, Amara told him over dinner, the table filled with laughter and warmth, you bought accountability. The relaunch of Amara's sent shockwaves through luxury fashion. Competing brands scrambled to revise internal policies, fearing they'd be next in line to go viral, not for glamour, but for injustice. Industry insiders called it the Sterling Standard. As the night drew to a close, Amara stood by the window, watching the lights of the city flicker like stars. What began as a painful, degrading experience had evolved into a movement. Real justice, she realized, wasn't always about punishment. It was about using your power to rebuild what was broken. And sometimes, the most costly mistake anyone could make was underestimating the strength of a young black woman and the billionaire father who refused to let prejudice go unanswered. If you believe every human being deserves respect, regardless of race, status, or appearance, type respect in the comments. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, so others can be inspired too. We'll see you in the next one.